we don't really know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long, got to keep. But now everybody knows, got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep going. What you want to be going, you will see.
Oh, yeah.
It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be going, you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and it printed out $100, a quarter in it, printed out $100, would you ever stop that machine from running?
But now everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
We know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going.
Good evening and happy Labor Day weekend, by the way. We love that we've got maybe even more people that can tune in and learn tonight, because what you're going to learn tonight will blow your mind. This is something that even this person who we're going to walk through their strategy, this is a case study tonight, they didn't know how. They didn't know how it was going to happen, but they knew that in order to retire, they were going to have to replace their working income. And in order to do that, they were also going to have to pay off this home. Now, they had spent 10 years paying on this mortgage, only to find out that they still had the bulk of that mortgage balance still left to pay off. This was influencing their ability to retire. This was influencing their exit strategy, right? In the year that they were able to retire. And so we fixed that, and we fixed it in less than 48 months. They are ready to go. Anything else you want to add?
So, this is, I guess, one of those results of a lot of the videos that we do over time where we'll share this example. In our case, we shared our specific example as it relates to us. And then all of a sudden, my calendar starts to fill with, hey, how can I do what you guys did? And this gentleman, he had a specific need, specific request, and it was all based around the fact that, hey, I saw what you guys were able to do with your home. I want to do the same, because I've got this time horizon that I need to get things done within, and I'm ready to take action now. How can I go about it? And I think I surprised him, because in his specific case, I'll call it specific circumstance didn't require the same actions that we took. And so I shared with him a different approach. I'll call it a more efficient approach for him, and it satisfied the needs of his wife. And I don't think that's something you and I even discussed, but it dawned on me as I'm talking. His wife had a specific concern, and we had to make sure we addressed that too. So, but we'll get into all of that.
Ooh, a twist that I don't even know is in here. That's really interesting. One of the other things about this is that he did everything right. He did all the right things. He was not making any mistakes. He was extremely responsible and still was not able to have what somebody else said that was possible for him if he did all of the right things. And so we're going to see what that looks like. Like, for those who are feeling like maybe I made mistakes or I didn't get started early enough, sometimes it doesn't matter if you do. It's not one size fits all, though. I'm glad that you brought that up, because sometimes people go, well, how is your machine built? How did you guys do it? I want to do it the exact same way. Leverage is different. Everyone's situation is different. And that's why it's important to learn the strategies, because then you can apply them to your particular situation or understand which ones are inside of you, the best options for you. Right. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because none, and I mean none of this, is one size fits all. But the beautiful part is it's kind of like Legos. Like, you can put these unique and non-traditional strategies together, and they become extremely powerful. And that's what you're going to see out of what we're going to walk through tonight.
Yep. I'm ready when you are.
Okay, well, first of all, shout out to Alex because it's they're celebrating his birthday.
Happy
With
birthday.
that, yeah. Well, where's my applause? Here we go. Here we go. Happy birthday to you, Alex, and thanks for tuning in too. We really appreciate it. We want to know what are you guys doing for Labor Day? Put it in the chat. Jump in the chat and become a part of the community while we're going through this. And that's where you can ask your questions if they come up too. All right. So without further ado, let's jump in. Here we go.
So the objective is,
I'll move
I
you.
guess you'll move me. So
Yeah.
the objective of today is to kind of walk through a strategy where I had a client reach out and said, hey, I understand you guys use the first position home equity line of credit to pay off your home. And you were walking through the details and how, even though the product you had wasn't very efficient, it sounds like it's the exact tool that I need to be able to accomplish my goal. How can I do it? And usually I kind of step back and let's start peeling back some layers first. Let's answer a few specific questions like what's the goal and all of those things that you guys know that I normally jump right into. And so in doing so, we learn that maybe our approach isn't the right approach. And this is his specific situation. And I haven't even given this gentleman a name. Let's call him Henry. Because I don't think we talked about a name, did we?
No, we did not.
Well, so I'll call him Henry from this point forward. So, moral of the story here is, let me get that. Gentleman, 66 years of age. He's got decent income. He's got about $5,000 a month in income. His expenses are about $3,000 a month, which means he has cash flow of about $2,000. He's 66. His objective is he's headed into retirement. He's got about 4 years left to be working for the company that he's working for, and he already has clarity around what his income is going to look like. When you add his pension and Social Security, he's going to end up with about $4,000 a month in income. So he currently has $5,000. He's going to end up with about $4,000. There's $1,000 deficit. His issue, his concern is, hey, even though I'm sure I could survive off the income that's going to be provided to me once I retire, I do not want to lose the cash flow that I have. So I don't want to lose this $2,000 in cash flow. This $1,000 is not enough. And he had concluded that, you know what? If I was able to get rid of my home, I can I guess close this gap by simply getting rid of my mortgage. So saw a video that we did, well, I guess a live that we did 2 weeks ago around how we were able to convert our mortgage into a first position home equity line of credit. He wants to do the same. And that's kind of where all of this started. So again, the goal is to maintain this cash flow. We do not want this. And we got 4 years to do it. And what's pretty cool about him is he's, as you mentioned earlier, he's done everything right. He's got a great credit score. He's got great cash flow. He's got a full-time W-2 job that he's not concerned about losing. He's planted. This is where he's going to be for the next 4 years. So he's going to leverage these 4 years to be able to get himself in a position to where he can comfortably ride off into retirement. He's saved, he's budgeted. Again, he's done everything that's been asked of him, but he's still short $1,000. How many people do you know who didn't learn until they were about to retire that they didn't have enough? I think this is at least the conversations I'm having, this is a consistent theme. Whether it's an IRA, 401k, 403b, whatever that company retirement plan is, I did everything I was supposed to do. But what I'm learning now is it's not enough. And so his objective is to close the gap using these details. And again, this is part of the problem. That retirement age is supposed to be somewhere around what, 65? Well, he's 66 and he's going to continue working till 70. So he's already exceeded that period where most of us are focusing on, hey, I'm going to leverage this part of my life and then I'm going to head into retirement. But notice, he's already working well into that period. So the objective is, hey, at a minimum, I don't want to be placed in a position to where I don't have enough cash flow to be able to sustain my lifestyle. And I think this is a perfect slide because what's happening here is in most cases, we've all been tricked. It's that dangling that carrot in front of us and it just continues to move. The goalpost continues to move as we get closer to it. and there's someone standing in the background going, all you got to do is, yeah, I know the market crashed 2 weeks ago, but don't worry about it. It'll recover. You'll be just fine. Not realizing the impact that that actually has on the ability to be able to sustain a lifestyle into retirement. So that's exactly what he's dealing with in this moment. And it brings up this slide, which we talk about a lot. Let me bring down some. Talk about a lot. And that is, most of us have some W-2 job, some income that we make, and we have a nest egg that we're building, whether it's a brokerage account or, again, IRA, 401k, 403b, whatever it is. And we will take our income and we will take that nest egg that we're building for the future and do whatever's necessary to save the home. If I need to borrow against my 401k, if I need to liquidate my 401k in order for us to purchase this house, we'll do it. When what we try to educate around, well, what we try to educate on this channel is, where's your leverage? If the goal is at some point to retire, what if you were able to use your home as a piece of leverage to be able to assist you in later in life, assist you in being able to retire when you want? And it's not an age, it's not a number. It's, where is your leverage? Is there leverage in your home? And can you leverage that home to be able to support that nest egg? This is not the conventional way of thinking. This is very much outside of the box. Because again, if you ask anyone, you'll do whatever you can from an income perspective to be able to buy that home. You'll even pillage your retirement and make it up later to be able to buy that home. What if we just looked at this a little bit differently? Hey, I can leverage my income. I can leverage my home to be able to build, generate, create whatever that vehicle is for my future. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. It's, what are those actions we can take by leveraging our home to be able to accomplish that goal? Speaking of the goal, let's see here. And again, he's done everything correct. We understand his income, we understand his expenses, and the reason he wants to make sure he doesn't lose the cash flow that he has is because as inflation increases, as life changes, as the situation that he's in right now changes, he wants to make sure he has enough cash flow available to be able to survive. And he's been doing his job. He's been contributing to his 401 or to his pension consistently. So he's been doing everything that he's supposed to do. And his time horizon, he's got 4 years. Meaning, what can happen between now and this 4-year period to maintain that cash flow of $2,000? His main objective is to not lose the cash flow he currently have. That's the goal.
Right.
Something you want to add?
Nope.
Okay. And we keep saying this, and it's because it's true. And this is pretty consistent with people around his age or people who are approaching retirement. And 9 times out of 10, we have done what was asked of us. Hey, we were told, you know what? We need to consistently contribute to this company's retirement account. We did it. We had to show up at work and put in our 40 years. Yep, we did it. All we're asking is that when we do our part, that the company comes behind us and do theirs. And that is, help us sustain our lifestyle in retirement. They've done that. However, what ends up happening is we put that nest egg or that retirement in the hands of people who could care less about us. We put that our retirement in the hands of people who, you know what, security isn't their goal. Net worth is their goal. So if they have to put your retirement in order to put your retirement at risk in order to achieve that net worth, they'll do it. Versus, is there an opportunity to secure what I have so I don't lose what I have? Or instead of it being riddled with 2/3 in fees, is there an opportunity to reduce how much is being siphoned off of my retirement so that I have enough to actually be able to retire comfortably? This system is the problem. The IRA, the 401k, 403b, your pension, whatever that type of product is, that isn't the problem. The problem is who, the financial advisor, the financial institution that holds it. It's that process that's impacting your ability in most cases to be able to accomplish your goal. And Sweetheart, I think this is where you'd probably plug the retirement gamble. Go ahead.
That's it. Yeah. That is exactly what I wanted to say. If you haven't watched that documentary, you should. The Retirement Gamble. It was done by Frontline PBS, and it's free here on YouTube to just go peruse it. What they were discussing in there and what they were confronting these major financial institutions about are the 1% to 2% in fees, and how that actually equals 2/3 of the funds that could have been in that account. What does that mean to somebody? It means that could equal 19 years shaved off of the years that you would have to work. You could have retired 19 years earlier if it weren't for this little 1% to 2% fee. It's not a little fee.
Right.
And the way that it's accumulated and siphoned out of your account, this person in particular, this case study that we're going over tonight, will show you. So 66 years old, wanting to retire by 70, well past retirement age, and still not there, still not in a place where they feel financially secure. They've done their time. They did everything that they were supposed to do, and still not enough. And this is happening in record numbers. This is the same generation who came up with the safety system to be able to retire, right? The independent system, the system that said that you wouldn't have golden handcuffs to a job anymore. You could do this yourself, right?
Right.
You could be independent and financially independent if you just A, B, C, and D. And more people are at this point learning that they can't. I want to bring up this other thing. This is so sad, but it's so important to note right now in this moment. There's somebody else who also was doing everything right. And at 60 years old, here in Arizona, this is a new headline that's been all over our feed. 60 years old, she passed away at work. She worked for Wells Fargo. Passed away at work. They did not find her for 4 days. 4 days. How long do you think it took to replace her? It's just reality. This is a real story, and it's really sad because we should not be working our entire lives. If you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, you should have the ability to retire early and put more years in your life and life in your years, right?
Right. No, you're spot on. Financial institutions, financial advisors, life insurance companies, banks do not care about us. We are easily replaced. Even if they forgot about us, we are easily replaced. The best thing that we can do is become them, function the way they do, build our nest egg, build our wealth the way they build theirs.
That's
so we
right.
don't have to be dependent.
That's right. And so when we're meeting with people, to our HR department, whoever it is that influences those independent systems that are tied to where your income comes from, right? These people who are also, their income depends on you being and opting into this system.
Right.
It's very important to understand how that impacts you and your ability, like how your money grows, like that off the top. Because 1 or 2% doesn't sound like it's big, but when you think of 19 years, are you kidding me? That's theft. In my opinion, that's robbery.
Right.
How do you guys feel about it? Do you agree with me? Because I don't mean to be grim, but this is so serious in terms of not just coming up with a plan, but in terms of you could be doing all of the right things. This is not people who are irresponsible, who can't get off, right? They can't get off the bus and go retire and ride off into the sunset. They're doing everything right and still cannot. There's a problem with that. And now we have to look towards and learn these non-conventional, non-traditional systems and strategies in order to be able to yield results in an amount of time where we can still save and put more life in those years. Yeah. So that's what I'll add.
That's it.
Carry on.
And so, again, going back to how did he find us? He found us because we were walking through an example of how we have been able to, I'll call it, remove some of the handcuffs associated with traditional means of building and generating wealth. And so the question was, or the thought process was, how can I basically get self-directed. That's really the goal here. How can I put myself in a position to where I can have more control to be able to take action and close that gap myself? I get it. There's not more Social Security coming at this point. My pension is not going to be any larger at this point. How can I guess, adjust what I'm doing today so that I could generate and have more cash flow available to me while also getting rid of debt? Like, is there a way? And again, his thought process was, I need a first position home equity line of credit. Well, what is it that we do? We leverage our home. We leverage our home and we treat our home as a vehicle that we use to pay our bills. And as we pay our bills, it doesn't really matter the interest impacted, meaning the first position home equity line of credit that we use is placed in a position to where we can pay our debts, and we can drive our income through this vehicle, which allows our cash flow to cause this vehicle to become a tool that we can use to eliminate debt and not have to be concerned about the impact on interest. And also there's secondary benefits, right? We have the ability to leverage these funds to be able to invest, to do other things, to become our own bank, to fund our secure compound interest account. Like, our home becomes a vehicle, becomes a bank that we can use to do many different things. And so the objective was, hey, how can we do what you guys are doing? Well, in order to do that, you have to understand the strategy. Our home is just a tool. Where does that tool, or how does that tool come into play? It comes into play as it relates to velocity banking. So you have to understand velocity banking, and you have to understand how the components of velocity banking matters. What's your income? Where does that income go? How is our bills paid today? Do you have a tool that you can drive your income through, which would then allow your cash flow to sit on that tool and help you eliminate debt faster? You have to understand the strategy. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time going over the strategy. We're just going to jump right into, what does that look like? So in his case, he's got a original home that he purchased for $190,000. The current balance on that home is about $130,000. He's in year 20 of his amortization schedule. He's got a really decent interest rate, and he's got a fairly decent mortgage payment. So $1,000 a month is what he's paying on a mortgage balance of $130,000. His objective was, hey, I want to get rid of this in the form of a first position home equity line of credit, pay it off, and then pay down that line of credit by using the velocity banking thought process or strategy to be able to then at some point pay off the home so that he can increase his cash flow. That's the objective. Well, part of the issue was his wife was concerned about picking up a debt of $130,000 4 years before retirement. That was a concern. And to be honest, it was a concern of mine as well. I get it. He's got decent cash flow, and the mortgage payment isn't that massive. So I believe he could still do some significant damage with a first position home equity line of credit. But my suggestion was, what if we got a second position home equity line of credit to still pay off this mortgage in a decent period of time? And one thing to note, if he continues doing what he's currently doing, he'd end up paying double for this home. Again, he's got about 20 years left. So if you take a look at the amortization schedule, which we will get into, he would have ended up paying about $280,000 total for this home. So, yep. So we had to identify where specifically is his leverage. Where is it located? He's got a home that appraised pretty well, appraised at $350,000. And he's got a mortgage on it of about $130,000. Again, decent interest rate, decent mortgage payment. What I suggested was, based off his cash flow of $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month is 24 grand a year. So if we just double that dollar amount, 24 grand a year would be right at 50 grand, 50 grand. So what if we got a second position home equity line of credit and leverage the second position home equity line of credit to eliminate the mortgage? How do you do that? Well, what I shared with him was, instead of refinancing this mortgage into a first position home equity line of credit, how about we get a second position home equity line of credit? Instead of refinancing into it, we simply dump the dollar amount of the second position home equity line of credit in it, and we recast the mortgage. So it caused us to kind of have a discussion around refinancing into a first position HELOC versus recasting his mortgage using a second position HELOC. And again, I'll get into those details. But the bottom line is this is his picture.
Well,
Go ahead.
the reason why that's important, though, I'll be quick, is because a lot of people hear that we used a first position or first
Right.
lien HELOC, and they think, oh, that's what I want. But
Right.
sometimes it's not always the best thing. So we're going to first walk you through what this looks like in the strategy that we propose for him. Then walk you through what the difference would be if he would have done what he thought was the best, which was our
Absolutely.
strategy. Yeah,
We are going to cover them both. That is correct.
Yep.
So again, this is his picture. And again, the home appraised at 350. If he was to get an 80% LTV line of credit in whatever form, 80% LTV is about 280. So my point is he's got more than enough equity available to be able to either get rid of the mortgage or just add a line of credit as leverage to be able to eliminate and or get rid of debt. And so when we talk about first versus second position home equity line of credit, we have to provide some context. And we went over this a few weeks ago, but I want to make sure we do it again here because 2 weeks ago, we talked about a first position home equity line of credit. But today we're talking about how to leverage a second position. So what are the differences between the two? And I'll make this bigger. So first off, again, from a first position perspective, this is a refi. You are refinancing the mortgage, getting rid of the mortgage, replacing that mortgage with a line of credit. We are not talking about that today. Whereas a second position is we're going to leverage this vehicle to pay down the mortgage and eventually pay it off. So position wise, a first position home equity line of credit is the only thing in first position. There's no longer a mortgage, whereas a second position home equity line of credit is behind the mortgage, meaning the mortgage is still in the most important position. Interest rates, typically the same. Really, I'd say every now and then you can get a promo rate that's a little bit better for a first position home equity line of credit. Why? Because a bank deems a first position home equity line of credit as being a more powerful vehicle, more important vehicle to their bottom line. But the bottom line is, in most cases, the interest rates are around the same. The loan to value ratio can often be above 80%. Whereas in a second position perspective, it's the difference between what the mortgage is and how much equity is left. And that sum is the total amount of equity available. And the use of the funds, you can absolutely use them for the same thing, not a big deal. And tax deductibility, pretty much the same across the board as well. And then flexibility, how you can use this tool is pretty much the same, whether we're talking a first or second position. So the biggest piece is interest rates and position. Other than that, these lines of credit are the same. And when I talk about recast, what do I mean? We talk about it a lot on this channel, but I don't know that I've ever fully defined what it means. And this is straight out of Google. What is recasting? Mortgage recasting is a form of prepaying your mortgage using some type of lump sum. Now, usually there are rules around that lump sum, meaning it has to be a minimum of a certain dollar amount. Let's call it $10,000. And at times, I've seen this from various banks. There's the number of times you can recast your mortgage, meaning maybe it's once a quarter, maybe it's once a year. But there are banks that will do unlimited recast, but they will only recast based off a certain sum that is, I'll call it certain size of a lump sum that is placed inside of the mortgage. But the moral of the story is the idea is your lender will re-amortize the loan with a smaller balance and a new lower monthly payment. What does that mean? Well, in his case, he's got a mortgage with a 3.24% interest rate. If we were to put a lump sum into the mortgage and recalculate, re-amortize, can I say the word? Re-amortize, still can't say it. Re-amortize? Is that it?
Yeah,
Re-amortize?
it's a remix.
So you dump in a lump sum and basically recalculate the mortgage. And notice when it says reamortize, what they're saying is they're going to bring that interest up to the top. So from a bank's perspective, they see this as a win. Why?
Right.
You might have been so far along in your amortization schedule that majority of the principal is actually going to help you. But when
Right.
we recalculate this mortgage, now the interest is pulled up front. So the bank sees this as a positive. They see this as we're handcuffing them even further,
Right.
not realizing that we're actually applying this strategy to pay the loan off faster. And I'll get into the how. But my point is, what is recasting? It's just recalculating the mortgage after you've dumped in a lump sum. And when you do that, it reduces the monthly payment. When the monthly payment is reduced, that additional cash flow that's left over is now yours. So when you apply that cash flow to the original cash flow you have, you put those $2 amounts together, you're now able to pay off or pay down that line of credit that you might have used for that sum faster. And the
Without
faster you pay it down, the faster you're able to use it again. Go ahead, sweetheart.
without having to lose access to that money. So a lot of people who are hesitant of investing those funds, right? Because then they're locked up in that investment, or making extra payments towards your mortgage because it's locked up in your mortgage, then they typically don't choose any of these strategies, or they reduce their investment into these strategies, which makes them grow slower and
Right.
less effective. But this way you don't lose access to those funds either.
Right. No, spot on. So, restating what I've already stated, this is the picture. And the idea is we're going to take this $50,000 second position home equity line of credit, dump it into this mortgage, recalculate the mortgage, pay down the line of credit, and do it again. But what does this honestly look like? Well, I'll start here and then I'll show you the how. So it starts with, hey, I've got this mortgage of $130,000. We're going to take that mortgage at month 0 and dump $50,000 from the second position home equity line of credit, because when I get the line of credit, there's no balance on it. It's 0. I've got $50,000 credit ready to go to work. So I'm going to take all 50,000, dump it into the mortgage. And when I do that, the mortgage balance goes from 130,000 down to 80,000. And then I'm going to recalculate the mortgage. And just so we were, because I think I said this earlier, but I'm sure I moved pretty quickly. We are at year 20. We're at year 20 on the amortization schedule. So when I dump this 50,000 in and the balance goes from 130 down to 80, if I do nothing, we would have moved down the amortization schedule a fair amount. But I don't want to move down the amortization schedule. I don't want to continue paying the monthly payment that I'm paying currently. I want to recalculate that 80,000 and leave it at year 20, which means my mortgage payment is going to drop. But what does that look like? And sweetheart, I'm going to do a split screen. So I don't know if you want to go to.
Yep. Got it.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't mean to bring me on here, but let's go. Okay.
That doesn't look like I have.
Let me fix it. No,
No
I can fix it. I don't know what happened.
And then I'll enlarge it from there as well.
Okay. Hold on, guys. Sorry. I'll fix it. Boop, boop, shadoop. And I think we're good.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, and I'll make this larger, but a couple things to highlight. Actually, not that. I want to highlight that. A couple things to highlight. The original home price, 190,000. Again, I'll make this larger so everyone can see it. But original home price, 190,000. We're talking about a 3.24% interest rate. I had to fabricate what his amortization schedule looks like. So I played with a lot of different numbers. So I dumped in a down payment of $10,000. He and I never had a discussion. What I'm doing here is I'm rebuilding what his amortization schedule would look like based off the fact that he said, I've got $1,000 mortgage payment and I've got 20 years left on my mortgage, and the original mortgage amount was 190 and I currently owe 130. So I rebuilt his amortization schedule based off that information. And so if, and well, highlight
And
this.
anybody can follow along if you want to go to calculator.net and pull
Absolutely.
this up to pull up your information in this way.
Yeah, and you make a great point because this is not magic. I'm not doing, there's no creative math happening here.
Right.
I am letting the system calculate what actually is occurring. I'm doing none of the math. And so this total out of pocket is, I got about 1,079, 1,080 bucks. And that's kind of what I'm using. And so in addition, if he continued this current mortgage payment over the full 30 years, he would have paid a total out of pocket of about 280,000. So again, 190 is the original loan balance. If he continues it through for 30 years, it'd be about 280 grand. And now let's kind of make this a little bit bigger and dig into the amortization schedule. So currently he's in, go monthly. Do I want to go monthly? I don't. Currently he's in year 20, which means he's in this place. He's right in here. And in essence, he said his mortgage balance is about 130,000. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Year 10.
Right.
You said 20, so I just want to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. So he has 20 years left on his mortgage.
Right.
Because this does get absolutely confusing. So thank you for that. He currently has 20 years left on his mortgage, which means in his amortization schedule, he is now in year 10 of the amortization schedule, leaving 20 years left on a 30-year mortgage.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Because again, I get it. I get confused. Now, but what happens if I dump $50,000? Here, make it bigger. What happens if I dump $50,000 in here? Well, if I dump $50,000 in here, it's going to move me somewhere down here on this amortization schedule.
Right.
So in essence, it's going to take 10 years off. But I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to dump that $50,000 into the mortgage, leaving that balance of $80,000, and then I want to recalculate. I want to stay at year 20. So what does that look like?
Well, we'll talk about why that's important too, because some people might say, oh, well, I'm going to skip that step and I'm just going to leave it, just keep dumping.
Yep.
So I'll leave it. Why would somebody want to add this other strategy and pair this along the way?
So why? Well, my current mortgage payment is $1,000 a month. And I am now dumping $50,000 from a line of credit into the mortgage, which means I now have two payments. I have my normal mortgage payment of $1,000, and I've picked up a second position home equity line of credit. I think the interest only on that second position home equity line of credit is $300. And if I only pay $300 a month, I'll never pay it off. Ultimately, what's happening here is I have two bills. I have a home that I have not paid off, mortgage payment of $1,000, and I've got a line of credit that I have to pay off now as well. What recasting or recalculating will do is it will reduce that mortgage payment, increase my cash flow, which will allow me to then pay back or pay off that $50,000 faster.
Right.
And again, remember his time horizon, 4 years, not a lot of time. So we need to do whatever we can to make sure we're putting as much cash flow as possible into this process so we can get this paid off in the 4-year span.
Yep.
So what would happen then, and I think I already did it. Yep, I did. And what would happen then if we, let me make this bigger. What would happen then if we dump that 50,000 into the mortgage, leaving a balance of 80 grand, same interest rate, but we want to calculate the mortgage now at that 20 years left mark or 10 years into the amortization schedule, however you want to word it, because thank you, sweetheart, it's confusing. He's got 20 years left on the mortgage. The loan term is 20 years. So if we recalculate this 80,000 based off that 20 years and the same interest rate, we are not refinancing this mortgage.
Important to note.
We are just recalculating how much we're spending on this loan at the same point in time of this mortgage. And when we do that, what happens? Well, notice how the monthly payment went from, what was it, $1,000 a month to like $450.
Yep.
So I just about cut the mortgage payment in half. And I also have a brand new amortization schedule. So what that means is I'm starting from, remember, the recalculation caused a reamortization, which means the interest and principal shifts because now it's 80,000 for the next 20 years compared to what you saw earlier. So the bank views this as a positive because now you're paying them more interest through this process. They just don't realize I'm going to do this over and over and over again.
Right.
Okay.
But a lot of people do this within like the first 5 years where they were only really paying interest for those first 5-10 years. And then they refinance to try to lower the payment. What are you lowering the payment? Maybe a couple $100. And that does create room for people. So I'm not downing that part. Anything helps, right? For a lot of people. But what are you actually doing to yourself? That extra couple $100 a month, is that just creating breathing room? Is it just allowing you to increase your lifestyle and add more of the things and the stuff and the lifestyle type of decisions? Or recasting, if you were to stay in a home, not a lot of people do that these days. Staying in a home, if you've already been there for 10 years, if you plan on staying there, being able to utilize a strategy like this and recasting versus refinancing, we should just do a live stream that explains the difference, because for some people they get really confused on those two things. Yeah. If that's you and you would like us to go through those differences, please let us know. That way we have some feedback on topics for the future.
But and your point is perfect because it also speaks to why it's not one size fits all.
Right,
Because
exactly.
your particular situation, based off your cash flow and your time horizon, this looks different. And again, I had mentioned there's a little caveat here. A $50,000 line of credit compared to a $130,000 line of credit, and my time horizon is 4 years, one weighs heavier than the other.
Right.
And that was a part of Henry's challenge as it relates to his wife, Henrietta. Um, and it was, she was struggling with picking up this $130,000 line of credit. It's basically
Man.
a $130,000 credit card with a 7+% interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you kidding me?
Oh, I'm on her team. Yeah, because that's exactly how I felt. I was like, I don't know what you're reading or watching on YouTube, but it needs to stop because this sounds crazy. And I was not. So I'm with Henrietta. We could be Joe and Josephine. Okay.
Right. Georgia and Georgia.
Names? Yeah. Where are you getting these names? Willy Wonka. All right, let's go.
So, and if you don't mind, if you go back to the split screen, because I do want to talk about both of these at the same time.
Split screen. Oh, you just mean the full?
No, full vibe board.
Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm. So what I want to highlight here is, again, yep, got that. So that $130,000 mortgage, we've dumped 50 grand on. And now for the next 20 months, we're going to be paying off that line of credit. It's going to take 20 months from this point to this point to pay off the line of credit. How do I know that? Well, remember, my original cash flow was what? $2,000 a month. So if I'm doing velocity banking, all of my income is going into this line of credit. I'm paying bills from the line of credit. That $2,000 a month in cash flow is paying down this line of credit. But there's one other piece. When I recalculated, when I recast this mortgage, my cash flow increased by $450. So as a result, my cash flow isn't 2,000, it's 2,000 plus 450, which is 2,450. So now I've got 2,450 available to pay down this line of credit. Well, what does that look like? So if I come over here, I think I already have it done. Yep. So I've got a $50,000 line of credit. Make this bigger. I've got a $50,000 line of credit at 7%. My income is $5,000 a month, and my cash flow after expenses is $2,450, which means my expenses are $2,550. So if I'm putting in $5,000 into the line of credit and I'm paying bills from the line of credit, The difference between these two numbers is what drives down the balance. It's velocity banking. Again, if you don't understand the strategy, this is not for you. You have to understand how the strategy works. So in doing so, how long will it take for me to pay off that $50,000? There we go. And so ultimately, it takes me 20 months. So at the end of the 20 months, what has happened? The line of credit has gone from 50,000 down to 0, which means I have an empty line of credit ready to be used again. So coming back over here, at the end of that 20-month period, I have an empty line of credit, so I now can make another chunk into this mortgage. But what else has been happening during those 20 months? If we're doing velocity banking, I didn't stop paying the mortgage. I've been paying that mortgage payment of $450 a month, just the basic. I'm not putting anything extra into my mortgage, just the $450. Well, during that 20-month period, the balance has gone from $80,000 on my mortgage down to $75,109. And here I want to show you. Let me come here. So this was the 80,000, and it's the 80,000 over 20 years. So what does it look like? What does this amortization schedule look like after 20 months? So we go to monthly. And now, what does this amortization look like at month 20? At month 20, the balance on this mortgage is $75,109, which happens to be the same number as here. So now at the 20-month period, I have an empty line of credit. The balance on my mortgage is $75,109. So what am I about to do? I'm now going to take another $50,000 chunk, dump it onto this mortgage of $75,109. When I do that, the balance goes from $75,109 to $25,109. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to recalculate this mortgage across this time frame. Well, 20 months is approximately 2 years, which means I've gone from year 20, I've gone from year 10 on the amortization schedule, which means I've got 20 years left, to year 12 on the amortization schedule, which means I have 18 years left. So ultimately, what I want to do now is recalculate this mortgage of $25,109 based off 18 years left on my mortgage. What does that look like? So let's come over here and I'll do it right here with you guys. So we're going from not 75,109, 75 minus 50. We're going to 25,109. And we're not going to do this math based off a 20-year loan term. We're now 18 months into that 20 years. So we're going to do this from a 18-year loan term. Again, all the other values are the same. So recalculate. So notice my mortgage payment has gone from $450 a month to $153. $450 to $153. Let's call it $150. $450 to $150. I just picked up $3 more $100 in cash flow, which means I can now pay down this $50,000 line of credit even faster. But let's do this. So, okay. We've recalculated the mortgage. I've increased my cash flow. So now I come back over here. And now, how long would it take for me to pay off that $25,109 mortgage? Well, here's where I get petty. As I mentioned, I have zero plans on ever paying off this home. We will leverage it year after year after year. Henry's goal is to pay off his home. I think we can see how this process happens. But here's what I'm going to do. Once I've created $20,000 of room on this line of credit, which will take me approximately 7 more months to create 20 more thousand of room on the line of credit. When I do that, I'm then going to recast again based off that 20,000, which means it's going to drop the mortgage balance from 24,501. How did I get to 24,501? Well, during that 7-month period, I was paying that 153 get to it. I was paying that $150 a month mortgage payment over that 7-month period, which means the balance on the mortgage went from 25,109 down to 24,501. I've now created $20,000 of room on the line of credit. How did I do that? Because I'm using velocity banking. All 5,000 went into the line of credit. All my bills were paid from the line of credit, which means my cash flow, which was original 2,000 plus 450 plus an additional 300, all of that added together is what's now driving down the balance of that line of credit. Once I get it 20,000 worth of room, I dump it on to the 24,501 recast. And when I do that, I now have a balance left of 4,501, $4,501. Where am I on the amortization schedule? Well, if the original dump was 20 months, the second was 7 months, and then I dumped another 20 grand in, I am now sitting approximately 27 months later than I started, which means I am no longer at 20 years left on my mortgage. I'm sitting at 17 years left on my mortgage. So what I am saying is I'm going to take this 4501. Let's look at it. Let's put in 4501. Yep. 4501. And it's not 18 years left on the mortgage, it's 17. And I'm going to recast this mortgage of 4501 for the next 17 years. What do I come up with? Well, I'll make it bigger first. That. Make it bigger. So now my monthly payment with 17 years left on the mortgage, my monthly payment is $30 a month. I'm going to pay this $30 a month for the next 17 years. Why? Because I didn't lose my 3.24% interest rate. And when I want to, I can go back to the well and get more lines of credit if I need to be able to do whatever I want. My wife and I want to take a trip. I now have a bank accessible to me that I don't have to jump through all these hoops to be able to take a trip if I want to take a trip. My line of credit of $50,000, I can reuse over and over and over again. Okay, I got a 10-year draw for the next 10 years. But then what will I do? Well, based off a mortgage payment of $30 a month and all of this equity, shouldn't it be fairly easy for me to qualify because I've got a great credit score, I've got decent income, I'm retired, my income is fixed. Having this balance of $4,500 and this payment of $30 a month for the next 17 years, I can qualify for whatever I want. So where's my leverage? Here's my leverage. Here's my opportunity to use my home to continue to sustain my lifestyle. And a couple things I want to highlight, and I think now, sweetheart, we can go from this to the, well, I guess I don't need you to do that. I can do it on my own.
There it is.
There we go. So we were talking about the mortgage, but let's talk about the other pieces to this puzzle. What happened to the mortgage payment during this same time frame? So when I started this process, the mortgage payment was $1,000. When I made the first dump, my mortgage payment went from $1,000 down to $450. And then I ran that out 20 months to pay off the second position home equity line of credit. Then that mortgage dropped down to about $153. And then I carried that out for another 7 months. And then again, I told you I'm petty. I went from 153 down to 30. And I'm going to ride, let's see. I'm going to ride this $30 out for as long as I can.
Right. Keep your credit active.
So the mortgage payment has gone from $1,000 down to 30. Well, if the mortgage payment went from $1,000 down to 30, that means my cash flow went up $970.
What does that look like?
And if my client's goal, if Henry's goal was to reclaim the $1,000 he was losing based off changing income, I think 970 is pretty close.
Yep.
And so, but what about the other factors? What happened to cash flow during this same period? Again, I started with 2,000, and when I made the first $50,000 dump, my cash flow went up to 2450, and then it took me 20 months to pay off that line of credit. And then I recast again, picked up another cash flow, and then at the end, again, not necessarily but at the end of the 18, at the end of the 27 months, my cash flow has gone from $2,000 a month up to 2873. And you may ask, why isn't it 2,900? Rounding, because I'm using the real numbers in the calculator, so it's just a rounding factor. But my point is, you see the $900 difference between this number and this number. And when you put before I get there, and what happened with the line of credit? Because again, I was using this line of credit for the last 27 months in various areas. Well, it started out with a zero balance. I got the line of credit, got $5,000 of room ready to use. I took $50,000, dumped it onto the mortgage. It took me 20 months to pay off that $50,000. Then I dumped another chunk into the mortgage. And again, I didn't knock it down. Meaning it didn't take me another 20 years to pay off the line of credit because I didn't wait till the line of credit became zero. I created enough room, $20,000 of room to be specific. I created enough room so that I can make a $20,000 chunk, which caused the balance to go right back to 50. So here is where I paid down the mortgage to the 4,500, but I still had a line of credit that needed to be addressed. Meaning, even though I've almost paid off the mortgage, that doesn't mean I've now paid off the line of credit. Why do I share this? We have to go back to Henry's time horizon. It's a 48-month time horizon. 27 months it took me to pay down that mortgage to that petty amount of $30 a month. Well, if it took me 27 months to do that, 27 months equates to, 27 months means of the 48, I still have 21 months left. If it took me another 16 to pay off this line of credit, was I able to get all of this stuff paid down in time for him to be able to retire in 48 months? So, and I'll go back into that, but I just want to kind of leave that there for a moment. And what does all of this look like together? Again, this is a pretty busy visual, but I just wanted to highlight some things. Yeah, I know. The mortgage in blue goes from 130,000 down to 4,501. During that same time, this is what was happening to the line of credit.
Right.
This is what was happening to the cash flow. Again, looking at it, it's all in the same time frame. 27 months to be able to pay off the mortgage and increase my cash flow. The only thing that's not showing here is the impact on the line of credit. That would have been too busy. But my point is, everything lines up. As I paid off one, the cash flow increases. As I paid down another, my ability to leverage and use and do whatever I want continues to improve as well.
Right. And I think for a lot of people, if they're, regardless of where they are in their journey, it's important to understand where your leverage is, but what you do with it is more important.
That's it. And so if we look at the before and after, we had a home that appraised at about 350. We got a second position home equity line of credit of 50,000, and we had this mortgage that we had to get rid of. But at the end of that 27-month period, or in total, 27 and 16, 43 months? At the end of that 43-month period, what does it look like? Well, we've got a lot of equity. We still have this $50,000 home equity line of credit that is available. It's empty. It's available to be leveraged and used. And yeah, we still have a small portion of this mortgage left. Why did I do that? I did that so that I can go back to the well as often as I want to be able to access this equity. I don't have to jump through hoops. Why? Having a mortgage on my credit looks good.
Right.
And having a mortgage on my credit at 3.24% interest looks even better.
Well, and even 7%, let's say you had the HELOC
Yep.
open still.
Yep.
Even
Which
7%
it
is better than most credit card rates.
Absolutely.
Billy's in the chat and he was pointing that out earlier. Like, how does this not make sense? Most people are paying upwards of 20% or higher, some close to 30% for an interest rate on a credit card, or if you're having to finance a roof or whatever it is, right? It could be healthcare expenses, whatever it is. 7% still beats a lot of what's being offered out there today.
Right. Now, and I think oh, yep. So what was the goal? The goal was, hey, I am 66 years of age. I've got decent income. I've got decent cash flow. My concern is when I hit 70, I'm going to be I'm going to have a deficit of $1,000 in my cash flow, meaning the impact here is going to be 1,000 less. How? It's because my income is going to drop. My income used to be $5,000 a month. If my income drops to 4,000, but my bills don't change, I now have only $1,000 left in cash flow. And while we can survive, we can make it, I want to make sure whether we change presidents, whether inflation goes haywire, regardless of what's happened, I have enough of a buffer to be able to sustain my lifestyle. Like, to me, isn't that the bare minimum? Like, at least I've worked 40 years for this company. At least they can put me in a position to where I can sustain my lifestyle. But he had to take action on his own. And by the time we're done, where did we end up? Even with $1,000 drop in his income, we were able to sustain his cash flow of $2,000 a month by using a second position home equity line of credit and recasting the mortgage over time. It took us approximately in total about 43 months to do it with a 48-month timeline. But what if we did none of that? What if we simply did what he asked to do and his wife was on board? We would not be doing it if his wife wasn't on board. But let's say his wife was on board and she said, yes, I want to do what Donnell and Angelique are doing. I want to replace my mortgage with a first position home equity line of credit. So we've gone through all of this. We've accomplished the goal. We've accomplished the goal in less than 48 months. But what if we were to simply get rid of this mortgage, refinance, and replace it with a first position home equity line of credit of the same 130,000. What happens when I do that? Well, this mortgage payment of $1,000 plus the cash flow of 2K would then give me a new cash flow of 2,900. So what that means is if this now becomes our velocity banking tool, we've got a first position home equity line of credit. We have replaced the mortgage. It no longer exists. We've got this $130,000 credit card at 7% with a 10-year draw. And again, we've got a timeline, 48 months. Well, I now have $2,900 a month that I can use to pay down this mortgage. You might question, if it was $1,000 mortgage payment and it was a $2,000 in cash flow, I'm missing $100. I'm doing that intentionally because there's still property tax, there's still things that have to be purchased. So what I don't want to do is ignore the fact that there are, even though the mortgage is gone, there are still items that have to be addressed. There's no longer an escrow account, but the moral of the story is his cash flow may be a little bit less than that total. So I'm just using a less cash flow, using $2,900 a month in cash flow. What does it look like? So let's see. What does it look like if we simply take this first position home equity line of credit, and we'll do it right here. Again, this is not my math. We take this second position, we take this first position home equity line of credit, same interest rate of 7%, and the monthly expenses, if the cash flow is $2,900, that means the expenses are $2,100. So how long would it take for a $5,000 income going into that first position home equity line of credit of $130,000 and paying $2,100 a month in expenses from that first position home equity line of credit, which means the difference, the $2,900 in cash flow, is what's driving down the balance on that first position home equity line of credit. How long will it take? We calculate. So notice his time horizon, 48 months. It would take approximately 48 months to pay off this line of credit. I'll make it bigger. It would take approximately, from month 0 to 48 months, it would take approximately 48 months to pay off this line of credit using a first position home equity line of credit. So can he do it? Could. What's required? Well, again, this is not a one size fits all process. If the burden of a $130,000 line of credit with a time horizon of 4 years to pay off makes you feel uneasy, because I had a conversation with the lady yesterday. She's not going to make a move until this election is done. She's doing nothing until Trump is back in office, which was her exact words. So if the objective is, hey, adding this huge burden of debt at this time is not a realistic or a viable option for me, okay, are there other options that you can take? But if he were to just simply replace his mortgage with a $130,000 line of credit, same interest rate, same cash flow, it will take him 48 months to pay it off. So, meant to do that. So my point, we went through all of this to accomplish a goal. That goal was, hey, in knowing the income, in knowing the expenses, in the objective being, hey, because of inflation, I want to make sure I don't lose my cash flow. I have decent cash flow, and my time horizon is 4 years. So whether we're talking first or second, we were able to accomplish the goal of maintaining his cash flow of $2,000. We were able to accomplish the goal either way you look at it.
Well, for most people, I don't think that you would accomplish. I don't think you would just accomplish your goal. Once you see what's possible, a lot of times we make the goal what we think is possible, right? With the tools that we have in front of us, we say, I'm going to create a goal that I know that I think I can achieve. But then you learn these other strategies. Stay right here for a second. Gotcha. You learn these other strategies and then you go, holy cow. Well, now I know how to do something more significant. Now I can make bigger, stronger, better moves. I can take advantage of different opportunities. So for some people, this turns into, I could pay this HELOC off in 4 years and I could be done. I could be riding off into the sunset. I could retire or early, or I could start purchasing additional properties. I could start scooping up some of these opportunities that I've always said, like, if I had access to, if I could move in a timely manner, if I didn't have to ask so much permission and cut through so much red tape in order to take advantage of this opportunity, I would have done that. Now you get to do it. So what happens? Like for us, that turned into, we became our own bank. So right. Instead of going through these other traditional systems, we now have more control. So when we saw an opportunity, we now can jump on it. That could be an investment opportunity. That could be a property for our kids. That could be a property for our portfolio. That could be another investment for our portfolio. It could be whatever it is. When that opportunity hits, we don't get to decide when those opportunities present themselves, right? What we can do is be prepared.
Right. And it goes back to the goal of this channel is to what? Help you identify where your leverage is.
Right.
What you do with it, how you use it, I don't think there's a list that I could put in front of you that would exhaust the options. Like
Right.
the list is literally unlimited.
Right.
What you can do with that leverage once you identify where it is and the actions that you have to take to make sure that you're able to use it over and over and over again. Because I go back to it's about the strategy.
Yeah.
And we're almost done, sweetheart, because just want to highlight some things that we also talked about already. And that is there are some consistent myths related to having a line of credit. And my answer to these myths are sometimes they're true, most of the time they're not. HELOCs are too expensive. They can be, depending on where you get it from, that matters. You have to have a lot of equity before you can use it. Not true. We walked into a situation where, because of the 80% mark, we were able to replace our mortgage. And when you replace your mortgage with a line of credit, you don't have any room to use it. It's now a full, you're at the limit. The key is, do you understand the strategy to create room? And when that room is created, now you have a bank. Now you have a vehicle that you can leverage and use to do other things. Not all debt is the same, and not all debt is bad. Understanding how to use it, where it's located, and again, interest rates matter, banks matter, what your options are, and how you're able to use it. All of that makes a difference. Letting your equity sit. We talk about this a lot. For those of you with a mortgage, and you're happy with your mortgage, and you're happy with the fact that your equity in your home is grown, and you know you can access that equity whenever you want. My challenge to you is meet me at Home Depot. You bring your equity as it relates to your mortgage, and I'll bring mine. Let's see who can actually physically walk out with a product using the equity in our homes. One is
Use
by debit card, one is by refinance.
Right. I love this argument when you're talking about tangible access, because I think Roger's in the chat and he's saying, like, I'm not comfortable with putting all of my cash flow into my line of credit that I'm using for a strategy. I'm building an emergency fund, not, and everyone in the chat's like, wait, you're not following the strategy, right? And he's like, hey, look, this is
Screw your strategy.
uncomfortable
This
for
is
me.
what I feel comfortable
Yeah,
doing.
exactly. And so, but I love that, because how many people are right there and they're like dipping a toe in the strategy, and others who are all in, they see how powerful it is when you use it to its fullest. They don't see how they're kind of robbing themselves of results by not following it fully, right? But we all understand, like, being comfortable and feeling confident about what it is that you're doing is completely different than blindly trusting and jumping off a cliff, as how he had put it. So, and I love that that analogy, because it does feel like jumping off a cliff. Because to me, that's kind of how I felt when you were like, listen, we're going to do this thing called velocity banking, and then we're going to do this thing later. Another time was, now it's first position HELOC. And I was just like, none of these things, I don't have confidence in any of these things. And so it did feel very, very scary. Absolutely. One thing I wanted to say, though, Billy brought this up in the chat, and we know this to be true in our own personal story. Once we started this process, going from can't qualify for hardly anything, right, to all of a sudden, not only can you qualify for just about anything that you want, but you also now have access to cheap money, cheap leverage. So you're saying, like, you take your equity and I'll take mine. That was the first argument that you had, and I loved it all the time because it was very tangible, right? It was the proof that it was tangible. But the difference here is now we have 0% in so many places and access to 0% for 18 months. This meant that we had access to well over $100,000. And that's what Billy was saying, like, not being able to qualify to now he has access to like $100,000 at 0% or more. The same thing happened to us. And then we were able to make money off of that money. So even though we were borrowing it at 0%, we were able to make money, free money.
It's
Who's
almost
not going
like
to do this?
It's almost like a code was unlocked.
Right.
Right. There
Yeah.
was a code that was cracked because the bank went, wait a minute, we got to do something to try to get this dude back into debt.
Right. Right.
And so, hey, here's an offer.
Right.
And
Because
it's
he'll
like,
never
where did that
pay it
offer come
off.
from? I didn't ask for it.
Right.
But it's the bank going, we have to do whatever because it didn't work with this house. He was supposed to be in debt to us for the next 30 years. He was supposed to buy us a home. He
And
didn't
then
do it.
and then another bank was like, well, hold on a second. We know how to reel him in. We'll get him. And we were just like 0%. Yep. And our investor friends were like, hey, look, I need $50,000. I'll pay you 18% for, what was it? 12 months.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what the terms were. We were just making money off of the money that they were giving us for free. But we would never have qualified for that, right? And we would have never been in circles to have access to opportunities like that. That's the part that I really want people to pay attention to is when you start leveling up, you not only do you start seeing things differently, but you start accessing different circles. You start thinking differently, right? Now all of a sudden you're having different conversations you would have never felt like you qualified for before. And it's simply because now you're prepared to take advantage of opportunities. And so now those opportunities, you're attracting those types of opportunities.
And it goes back to that slide that I had earlier in this presentation. That is, we will take our income and we will take our retirement and do whatever we can to save this house versus understanding where our leverage is located.
Right.
We have leverage in our income. We have leverage in our home. Let's use both of those to build our nest egg, to build our future, to put ourselves in a position to where I don't have to work till I'm 66.
Right.
I can put myself in a position to where I get to decide what that date and that time will be. I get to fire my job.
Right.
Not my job gets to tell me when it's okay for me to stop.
Or like the lady who was working at Wells Fargo
Pizza?
here in Arizona.
Oh, okay. Thought you were going to do the pizza one.
Well,
Yeah.
that's another
There's a lot
thing.
of them.
Yeah. The lady here in Arizona who she sadly passed away, 60 years old, at her desk at work. She clocked in and never clocked out, and they did not find her for 4 days. It's not okay.
It's not.
It's not okay. And or the lady who was like in her 70s had to return back into the workforce, but the only thing she could do was deliver pizzas. That's the viral video of her falling with that pizza because that's just because that's all she could do. She was willing to do anything because she needed income. We can do this in a different way notice he didn't start a business to pay his home off in 4 years and increase his retirement income. He did nothing extra than what he was doing. He just reallocated and moved his money in a different way. That's it. He just reorganized. You know, when you reorganize your house or your pantry and you're like, wow, this actually looks like it's a bigger room now. Same furniture, right? Could be the same furniture. You're just rearranging the space. It's the same thing that we did here for this gentleman and his cash flow.
And for those who may kind of be in the chat or who will soon be in the chat when they watch the replay, I get it. I really do. Because it can be. Like, it's possible.
Yeah.
But that's where understanding how to leverage, how to use, how to structure, what are the questions you should ask the bank.
Yeah.
To make sure you're not putting yourself in a position to where you have a horrible product.
Right. And Antonio, thank you for bringing this up because, I always love a chance to talk about the generation who came up with putting meat and jello together. This is the same generation who developed these what are now traditional retirement plans. Nobody's eating meat and jello together anymore. And so we now know that whole, it's not a vibe. We needed better systems. We needed better casseroles than putting meat and jello together. We needed better ways to entertain our guests, better things to put in magazines, food magazines, and we quickly replaced those. But for some reason, we did not replace these broken systems, even if we knew that they were failing. So we have the opportunity to do that. It doesn't matter what they're putting on the store shelves, right? You get to choose what you put in your body, and it's the same thing for your finances. You get to choose where those resources are allocated and how powerful they are in helping you reach your goals. We now have not now, but if you're new here, you now have permission. You now have control. You now have the way to take control of your financial future. And it's important. But the confidence piece, can I do this? Can you do this? Is this possible? Is this just for this person, this particular case study? Right. How would I interpret this information and then go and apply it towards my situation? This is why learning the strategy and the details inside of the strategy matter, so that you can understand how to do it. But what if they can't? If they can't, we've got some Q&A coming up, so we've got some good questions.
I think I've got 2 slides left.
Okay. All right.
But real quick, on this slide, HELOCs are horrible products. Hopefully what you've also learned over these last few weeks, and I know there was a gap between the last time we talked about this, we have a home equity line of credit with higher rate, with hoops that we have to jump through, with the debt burden being increased, and the fact that the bank's terms aren't, I'll call it, the best. But even with that, if you understand the strategy, you can still accomplish your goals. And so
that's right.
HELOCs can absolutely be powerful tools. And I think the only thing missing from this list is, you can pay off debt faster. You can put your equity to work for you. And you can also put it in position so you have access. But the biggest piece here is it's leverage. You have the ability to create a vehicle that you can leverage to do other things, to accomplish other goals. You can leverage the home that you're in to be able to put yourself in a position so you can generate wealth, so you can dictate when you should or shouldn't retire. It's a form of leverage. I think we have been conditioned to believe that banks are the expert. And so when we walk into a bank, we've been conditioned to accept whatever the bank offers us. And usually if it's related to a home, it's a mortgage. Not realizing the only reason they're doing that is because that's the vehicle that they make the most amount of money off. So why wouldn't they offer it to you? Versus just backing up and asking some better questions, interviewing banks, pitting them against each other so that we can identify where our leverage is. And lastly, who is best suited for a product like this? You have to be cash flow positive. You have to have equity. You have to have consistent, stable income. Because again, if we're applying the strategy, that's consistent, stable income is what's going to drive down the balance of this line of credit consistently. And ultimately, moral of the story, got to be disciplined.
You got to be strategic.
Ooh.
I miss that.
It's all good.
But
I missed it too.
Be strategic. Hashtag strategic for this live stream. All right.
But the key piece here is understanding where your leverage is located and being strategic in applying the strategy. That's it. We're done.
Oh,
so this is about identifying where your leverage is located, how to get multiple uses out of, okay, you're fine. How to get multiple uses out of the same dollar, and ultimately how to take those dollars, put them into action to be able to accomplish your goal. That's it.
Well, I think they're probably going to want to see what you were talking about. So that's it.
Yeah.
And I like it because it's the Swiss Army knife.
That's it.
That's the multiple uses out of your same dollar and how important it is. We understand how resourceful you can be with a Swiss Army knife of sorts. And so we don't see these strategies any other way. You can use them in many ways. And that's why learning what they are is so important, because it isn't one size fits all, and how you might use something, a HELOC, first position, a recast, a self-directed 401k account. What else do we talk about here? A SKIA, right.
Annuity.
For some people, an annuity is one of the a very strong vehicle for them. For others, it's not, right? So that's where I think understanding how these things can be used. It's like watching a DIY show and you go, wow, I would have never thought of that, right? Well, that's because we weren't taught any of this stuff for these financial products, right? And how we can make them grow, how we can accelerate our goals and achieve more, faster. We can grow farther And we can do that when we grow together. So if you've gotten value, before we head into the Q&A, like this. This helps us. Jump into the comments. Tell us what, like an aha moment maybe, or you can put your questions in there too. All right, so let's move on to questions. All right, we've got some here already to go. Omo, thank you so much for tuning in. I haven't seen your name before. So says, I'm a bit late and we'll watch it from the beginning after, but what's the minimum credit score required to take out a HELOC? I think it's a great question.
Yeah, and I believe it varies from institution to institution, because maybe you might be in the military, and I know Navy Federal is pretty lenient in their lines of credit based off your service. So there may be an opportunity to identify a credit union or some other facility that may be a little bit lenient. But I've seen anywhere from, I want to say, 660 to 720 being the minimum. I know there are credit unions out there that I've seen less, but I'd say on average that 660 to 720 range.
Okay. Tabitha says, oh, are there ways to increase your cash flow? I think we had this one starred because it had a question in it. So, but it's a great question to ask. So they're in the chat, helping Roger, who is hesitant in getting started fully into velocity banking. Feathers in there helping him out too. I think. Are there ways to increase your cash flow is a question most people jump to first, not how to use what you currently have in a different way or in a more efficient way, but how do I increase my income? It isn't this or that, right? It can be this and that. But the problem with a lot of this is that the time spending in starting a business or a side hustle, or the extra time in trying to generate more income, if what you're not doing with your current income is putting it to good use, like first and foremost. It can be this and that, right? But that's the part right there. When you see what you could have been doing with the money that you already have coming in, then suddenly spending more time to try to generate income. And it's for some people it can be investing. For some people it could just be wasting time, burning time. Where would you want to spend that time? I hope it's not working. I hope it's not just working to support a lifestyle. I hope for everyone. Who was it? I think it was Tabitha. I think we were talking in the chat about the amount of peace, having financial peace. I wish that for everyone. Even she was saying, like, the amount of financial peace, just knowing that everything's going to be okay, like that alone was worth its weight in gold to jump in and learn these strategies so that I could know for sure when I'm getting off. I know for sure I have options. Like, I'm not pigeonholed into this one particular thing, 30-year mortgage, right? Like, I know where my options are now. Now it's just a matter of like stepping back, taking a look. Could this be more efficient? Sure. And it'll improve as I learn, right? But I'm already far ahead of where I was going to be just because I got access to information. That's powerful.
And that's where, well, two things. Putting your lifestyle, your money in a position to where it doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter whether Elon Musk did or didn't do something on Twitter. You're putting your finances in a position to where they're not bulletproof, but you have flexibility. You can adjust regardless of what happens. You can adjust.
Yeah.
And so the objective is, how do I build the structure around me so that regardless of what happens, we'll be okay? And that's that financial peace piece. And financial peace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Financial
Peace.
And as it relates to this gentleman, that's where I struggle with people who say I'm doing partial velocity banking.
Yeah.
Because if you're truly using the strategy effectively, that means not just your income is going into the vehicle, not just your income is going into the debt tool. Your emergency fund lives in the debt tool.
Right.
Sounds
Yeah.
scary. But follow me for a minute. If I've got $50,000 sitting in savings, is it doing better for me sitting in savings, receiving that 0.1%, 1% interest that I'm receiving on that 50,000? Is it doing better for me there? Or if that same $50,000 was sitting on my line of credit and it dropped the balance on my line of credit from wherever it was down 50,000, how much interest am I no longer paying? Am I again, which is it doing better? And I get it. We can have a cost avoidance conversation if you want, but my point is, which place is it actually more effective? Is it sitting in savings, making me next to nothing, or reducing the amount of interest that I'm paying back to the bank? Because if I'm fully using the strategy, even though I may need more income, if I'm putting all of my resources, my bonuses, my tax return, I'm putting all of my resources into this line of credit to do what? Pay it down as quickly as possible. And if I had an emergency, this vehicle is what I'm going to use for that emergency. Why? Because that's where it lives. So I think that's where it becomes a challenge if we're doing the strategy halfway because your money's not effectively working for you. And again, not everyone is the same. I don't know your particular situation. I'm not saying all you got to do is. My point is understanding the strategy, applying the strategy fully so that you can get the full benefit of all of your cash flow driving down the interest associated with whatever that tool is you're using.
Okay, I'm trying to find all the questions to make sure that we didn't miss any because I wasn't in there getting them from before. Okay, I wanted to move on to something else, but I'm going to try to go in order. Billy was in the chat sharing his journey to starting Velocity Banking, and I freaking love his story. So powerful. I was in Clubhouse for like 2 years. Telling everybody, like, okay, listen, I know this sounds crazy, but my husband started doing this thing and like the results we're getting is insane. You guys got to listen to this. And they were like, yeah, okay, whatever, Angelique. And I've tried to shout it from the mountaintops, like, get in here and learn something, like learn this. I was begging you to do videos about it so that people could learn. And you were like, not into it. You know, who am I to really be telling anybody? I'm like, you're changing our life with this information. Let's just, who cares? Just get out here so people know what the strategy is. That was like, I don't know, 4 years ago. So now we are, Billy, I don't know, was it a year ago? Maybe now? Maybe even not even a year ago, probably. Because we've only been live streaming for a little over a year now, right? Point is, 6 months, $27,000 of debt. Now, why is Billy's story not that much different from a lot of people's story? It's crazy. Sounds super impressive. It is impressive. It's because he didn't have to go make any more money in order to do like the initial 2 weeks. I think it was like 16 grand or something like that. 8 grand. I forget what it was. It was like thousands of dollars within the first couple of weeks, simply because he understood that where you put your money is going to be more powerful. And then it just became a game, right? At that point, he was like, I could have been doing this the whole time. The whole time. Are you kidding? The whole time. The whole time. And for a lot of people, like, obviously I did not do it justice to explain it, or people would have understood the value, right? And they would have been leaping over here. Well, you weren't really over here. We had a video about it, right?
Right.
But regardless, it doesn't matter. I'm so grateful that you were willing to jump on our live stream and learn these strategies, because we've seen so many people's lives completely change just because they had access to information, which is why it's important to us. We know that having access to information was the key that unlocked this door for us. So thank you for trusting us, Billy. And thank you for sharing your story, because it helps others to see, wow, it's not just these case studies that they're showing up here on the screen. It's other people too. They're applying this information. They understand it enough to get these types of results too. B says, Angelique, I've been waiting to make an appointment with you guys because I don't know if y'all work weekends, but I want to start self-directing my own account. You're in luck.
Do I work weekends? So the key piece is go to my calendar. You can go to selfdirected.info, click on the calendar, and just pick a time. Not only do we work weekends, we work holidays. Because here's what I get. I get it that a lot of times weekends and holidays are the only time that people have off. I know there are several people who watch us during work. Like they're literally working, listening to us. And so they don't have the time to be able to jump on a call because once they get off, they have their family.
Right.
So I do make myself available on weekends and I also have slots available on holidays as well because I get it. And people think I'm crazy for doing it, but my job, my goal, my purpose, I believe, is to do for you what I wish someone would have done for me. And I know if I would have had the opportunity, I would have loved for someone to make time out of their schedule to be able to make it a little bit more convenient for me because my lifestyle was so hectic. So I try to do the same for others.
Well, I thought it was wild. And I thought, did you mean to maybe not block off like when you first started doing it? Did you?
Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Did you accidentally? And then it was almost like, well, hold on a second. Somebody else is booking on Thanksgiving Day, right? Somebody else is booking on Father's Day. Somebody else is they're wanting to meet. So then just leave it open, right? If so, that's when somebody has the time, then or they'll text and say, "So sorry, I didn't realize that day that I booked was going to be a holiday." And it's like, no, it's open for a reason. If we're not available, we take the time off for sure. But to see people jumping in on Christmas Day, not everybody celebrates Christmas, but they get the day off, right? So the time is available. Watching you, waiting for you to get done with your appointments on New Year's Eve. We did that. And it wasn't a big deal. It was like, how cool is it that we get to do that and we get to serve and then we still have the freedom? If somebody else booked right then and there and we had something to do, it would be more of an honor to be able to help that person when they had the time and they are eager to get answers to their problems, right? Yep. To work out the math. This is the time that they have to do that. That's it. That's it. So that's hard to do on the live stream, right? So that's where appointments come in handy. But the point that I was trying to make is it's hard to sometimes interpret this information for yourself. Right. That's what the consultations, and they're all free. That's what they're for. And it's a great way to kind of just map out your situation and then say, okay, Donnell, where is my leverage? What am I missing here? And what would you do if this was your profile, right? And that's the type of, that's the type of details that you can go over in those types of consultations, right?
Absolutely.
And then explaining concepts too for a little further if you need help with that. Like, hey, I'm not really getting this, or my spouse has questions and they didn't want to watch the 2-hour live stream that I sent them.
Which is understandable.
Bruh.
That is, that's a lot of spouses. Look, I've been watching y'all, and my significant other sent it to me. They're watching eager, like they're all jumped up and excited about it. And all I see is a bunch of math. And I'm just sitting here a bunch of math, a bunch of risk, a bunch of untraditional things, a bunch of things that are making me feel uncomfortable. And I'm going like, why are you wanting me to watch this stuff? Because the questions that I have, they can't answer, right? You're the spouse going, well, what about this? What about that? And they're like, okay, but not those questions. What about the wins, right? So when you get on the phone, on the call with Donnell, you get to ask all of the what ifs, and you get to learn in a different way. And it helps us understand too how people are learning and what other questions that we can answer. So, yep. So that's how you do it. Okay, let's see. Moving on. Okay, from Ty says, are there any tax implications of a HELOC that you know of? With a mortgage, they hook us by telling us that we can write off the mortgage interest and property taxes, but not sure about the HELOC. What about it?
So I don't see it. Yeah, this is for educational purposes. So I'm not a tax attorney, financial advisor. I can't give you tax or financial advice. So please take whatever I say with a grain of salt and seek the right advice. But with that being said, in our case, our first position home equity line of credit is in place of our mortgage. We can write off our first position home equity line of credit interest the same way we could write off our mortgage interest. Now, here's where the gray area comes into play. If you're just writing off mortgage interest or HELOC interest associated with, again, having a line of credit in place of your mortgage, fine. But when you start leveraging the line of credit and buying other things, we're really not paying, like in our case, we're not paying off the mortgage anymore. We're not paying off this house anymore. We're paying off investments. We're paying off the leverage that we've used. So we've kind of exhausted that opportunity. But can you? Your question is, can you write off the interest the same way you would as a mortgage? The answer is yes. But again, not here to give you financial advice or anything like that.
Well, I'm not a tax attorney. I got to say all the things he said, not me either. Okay. But I will tell you, Ty, that one of the greatest opportunities that we have is, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is to reduce your taxable income. How do you do that without having a bunch of deductions, right? Or depreciating assets? What we learned along the way is so many people talked about deductions, how to write off anything on your taxes, and you instantly go like, oh, that's genius. Want to know what are all the things I can write off, until you learn how the banks see that on your paper trail and what your paper trail actually starts to look like. And now you have access to less leverage. You are limiting yourself thinking that you're winning. But then you realize what you actually lost out on, and you go, whatever I was about to pay in taxes doesn't beat what I could have gained in this investment or this opportunity that was lost. So now the goal is depreciating assets. So having access to things where not only is your money growing, not only are your assets growing, but you also have those same tax benefits or tax advantages that help you reduce your taxable income without being penalized from institutions where you need to be able to access more leverage. So long way of saying, are there tax benefits? The strategies are where they come from. It's not the vehicle, it's the strategies.
And you bring up a great point, because again, we've done this for the last 2 weeks, and usually we have the discussion around then what? And we
Right.
have not done that.
Right.
And it's the then what part, because we should all be hoping that we are living in I'll call it a Roth environment, a tax-free environment. We should all be living in an environment where the wealth that we're generating is being generated tax-free, because I'm not opposed to paying my fair share. What I don't want to do is not be able to take advantage of the same opportunities Trump and the rest of his friends are able to take advantage of. So the key piece is putting your money in a position to where you can actually generate tax-free dollars. So how do you do that? Well, what do rich people do? They use leveraged dollars,
Right.
because leveraged dollars are not taxable. So what are those vehicles you can put your money in that can grow exponentially, and you can leverage and or use those dollars tax-free? Because that's the then what. Like, hey, I've reduced the debt. I've got this line of credit, and I'm understanding how to use it. I understand velocity banking. I've increased my cash flow. I've paid off the debt. Now what? Well, hopefully the objective is to put your money in a position to where you absolutely don't have to worry about who's president, what's happening on Twitter, what is inflation, because my vehicle is generating tax-free income. That's the goal.
But it's not do this, then that.
Right.
And that's the
Right.
part is, I think a lot of people get to, okay, well, I'll pay off my house in 5 years, and then I'll book a call to talk about the then what. You can be doing this and that.
Right.
And that's the most powerful part of this, is being able to see this machine that you can be building. And it's okay if you start off small. It's okay. It's better that you start than to wait, because time is the greatest asset that we have. And we're so grateful that you guys are spending it here with us. Okay, moving
Right,
on.
on Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, Carrie says, oh, no, my bad. Okay, Zaid. Hi, Zaid. Hope you guys are all well over there. With these strategies, as Bill's debts are paid off and only the first position HELOC and debt tool are the only expenses remaining, how do we keep credit scores from continuously dropping, or does it matter?
Okay, and this is Donnell's perspective. This is not Dave Ramsey or everybody, all those gurus out there that talk about credit and how you should or shouldn't. This is Donnell's perspective. Um, I see credit scores as tools. When you need them to be high, do what's necessary to make sure they're high. But when you're in the midst of the war, when you're fighting the battle, and if the battle is debt, my objective is to leverage this line of credit to eliminate debt. Well, that line of credit, whether first or second, is going to be viewed as a big credit card. So you having a $130,000 first position home equity line of credit from the perspective of the bank, that is a significant debt. It is going to impact your credit. So what? I got the line of credit now. Now I get to use it to pay down debt and increase my cash flow and do all of those things that I've been wanting to do. I'm now taking action with that line of credit. I could care less what my credit score is because I'm taking action. But now let's say I'm in year 9. It's a 10-year draw on this line of credit. Hopefully I've been using it effectively to where I have control over whether the balance is high or low. I know it's year 9 or I'm approaching year 9. At year 10, I need to now get out of this line of credit and get into another. So I need to start taking whatever the action is necessary to make sure that line of credit is at its lowest point so that my DTI isn't impacted, so that my credit score can improve, because you'll watch your credit score fluctuate. When the balance on the line of credit is high, your credit score is low. As you're using velocity banking and you're paying it down to 0, you'll see your credit score go back up. It is going to ebb and flow. It is going to fluctuate. So what? I don't need it at this point. But when I need it to be low, I know what actions I need to take to be able to make it low. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, well, regardless, there's a lot of people that believe money doesn't buy happiness. They don't believe that your credit score has anything to do with who you are or your self-worth, and so therefore, why worry about it? I mean, there's people out here who think like that.
I think I married one.
That was absolutely me, and it just came from what was normal in my world, right? There were so many people who were not concerned about this, and it was really like a joy vampire to talk about these things and to consider that money was the root of all evil, right? Money was such a focus for people that it robbed them from just being like kind people, happy, healthy, wholesome people, if they're so focused on money all the time. And I thought the secret must be then to not focus on that and to focus on having a fulfilled life, even if it doesn't mean being millionaires, right? It's very unfortunate because it'll be that very same mindset. And that's not saying that you can't do this and that.
Right.
Hello. Hello. You can do this and that. We could do a whole live stream on the mindset around money and how, like, even just our journey in how we both, even though that was something that you had a different relationship than I did, you still had to unpack a lot of the idioms, even songs, and how songs have shaped your relationship with money, how you approach finances to this very day. You can probably find in the songs you listen to within the first 10, 20 years of your life.
A lot of this is about control. And when you've been bred as an employee, when you've been bred as a sheep, all of the people that came before you were sheep, and you were supposed to fall right in line with the sheep that kind of brought you along. It is very difficult to kind of, I'll call it, release yourself from those those shackles of just following along with what everyone else is doing. So you're right that your mind state as it relates to how money, credit, leverage works, it's a work, and it's a work in progress. Like we still run into well, I still run into situations today where I find myself stuck in that same mind state of, wait a minute, am I thinking from the perspective of, um, this isn't possible because no one has blazed a trail to do it? Or is it from the perspective of abundance? Is it from the perspective of, have I done the homework and the due diligence around the education to understand the reasons why so that I can move forward? So you're spot on with that, sweetheart.
Yeah. And I struggle with the same thing, obviously. And that's this quote really hit me. I've seen it a few times, but I just recently came on my feet again today. And it was, we do not rise to the level of we don't rise to the level of our goals, right? We fall to we default to the level of our systems in place.
Yep.
Programming, right?
Yep.
And changing that is hard. Being able to identify it when it's happening is just like its own thing, but changing it is hard. It is like working out when you have not ever one time trying to do a push-up and you just go like, no, you know what? My arms don't like it. I'm not built for push-ups, and just moving on, right? I mean, that's literally how it feels when you're working out, when you're sweating and you think, no, my skin is crying. It's not, we don't like it.
Bruh.
So trying to train yourself, training your brain along the way. And that was really where I had to get to as well. Feathers in there saying, yeah, oh, maybe I misunderstood what she was saying. So the point is, you might be here watching this live stream and your spouse might be watching Netflix or something, right? And you've been trying to get them to watch these types of things, but this is what's keeping your interest, because you're going like, I want solutions. I want to move. I know that there's a key out there that can unlock these doors for me. I have to find my key. The Stidhams are out here sharing how they found their key. They're sharing how other people have found their keys. And so now I'm trying to find, where is my key? This is it. And once you find that key, sometimes you might need to be the proof. You just prove this door does unlock, darling. You might have to prove that to your spouse. You might have to prove that to your parents. You might have to prove it to your siblings. You might have to prove it to your kids for them to get on board. You might have to be the proof in your community or within your circle. You might also have to leave a circle or two. That's unfortunate, but it's true. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about that part, but it is a very real thing that sometimes we have people around us and we stay in situations with mindsets and habits and whatever else that keep us poor, keep us fearful, keep us making decisions that are comfortable but aren't serving us. And I want to ask you, if that's you, if you're struggling to make a change, if you're struggling to learn something new, if you're struggling to make that first step to maybe put your cash flow, get a line of credit and help reduce debt, just to help build your leverage or your ability to access more leverage, maybe later. Maybe right now you're building your credit to be able to qualify, right? You're improving your profiles to be able to qualify for a larger vehicle like a HELOC, for instance, or to purchase a home, right? Could be that. And you're hesitant to get started. I want you to ask yourself, if anybody around you has anything to do with your hesitation, ask yourself, in 10 years, are they going to help you survive? In 10 years, are they going to go find keys for you when you are lacking resources, opportunities, or options? That answer is probably no, and that's why no one's coming to save you. You are here to save yourself. So pretend you could go back 10 years. What would you do different? Now that you have some of this information, you know some of this, how would you have applied it 10 years ago? Now imagine that the future you, 10 years later, is now here with you. They are gifting you this information. They're saying, I went back 10 years and I gave you this information. It's today. Future you just gifted you the ability to see and make a change starting today. And that is how I think of it. That's probably the most powerful framing I could put around it is when, in terms of no one is coming to save you, you are saving yourself from the future today by making a different decision. And I love that for us. I love that we can do that because some of us have to break those cycles in order to start building new habits. And I have myself to thank later. I will have myself to thank. You will have yourself to thank. We'll have each other to thank, right? The future versions of us. And those versions have to make changes too in order to develop into those versions. So, okay. Roger says, it blows my mind, Angelique, that paying off within 4 years is doable and you don't have to starve to do it. I understand a lot of sacrifice and discipline is needed, but pouring all of your income in, that part is making him feel uncomfortable. But the point is, you don't have to starve. This is not beans and rice, right?
This is not lifestyle changing. I can't do what I was doing yesterday. This is the same expenses. It's just driving your income through a vehicle that allows you to pay it down faster, which allows you to rinse and repeat and do it again.
Yep. Wild, right? Okay, Kevin says, what is the name of the calculator?
Which? Calculator.net?
Well, you used two.
Yep. So the mortgage calculator is calculator.net. The HELOC calculator I got off of it's from the Replace Your Mortgage team. So Replace Your University, I think, is where it's located. But I think the HELOC calculator they use is no different than the ones that you can find online anywhere. Again, I didn't make any of these. I'm just using other people's numbers, and it's because it's just math. At the end of the day, the math is the math, regardless of how you look at it, regardless of whose calculator you use.
Yeah, and thank you for that feedback, guys, in the chat. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we're not about beans and rice. There's a lot of ways that you can go about this, and you can limit yourself, and you could sacrifice. I will tell you this, though. Our versions of beans and rice are the countertops. We will not upgrade anything just because it needs to look better in this house. I have 3 degrees in architecture and interior design. I studied my behind off to be able to live in a gorgeous house and help others just make things look and feel better. Like, that was a religion almost that I belonged to, right? If you think of it that way. It was an ideology that was so important to me that I spent money to learn.
Bruh.
Now none of it matters because I have different information that makes way more sense. And that means that whenever I look at these countertops from 1992, by the way, and I'm like, hate these countertops. It doesn't change the fact that they're ugly, you guys. It does not change the fact that they're gross. It's that when I think of replacing them, the only thing I can think of is how much it's actually costing me, because like $20,000 or whatever it costs to change like a kitchen of cabinets, right? And some people are like, yeah, I can't stand them. We're changing these. Like, I can't deal with it. Some people walk in the house and they're like, girl, these countertops, why haven't you? Because when that money goes out onto those countertops, it dies on those countertops. What is going to happen if I'm cutting things, wiping off $20,000 every single day? What is happening to that money? It's not helping me at all. And a lot of people pour the money into the house, making it look a certain way, and then 10 years later or 5 years later, they're redoing stuff because trends change or whatever the case changes. And then they find out, well, what about our retirement plans, right? Well, we got to enjoy where we live, but you could be living in a great place and be broke and then lose that place. But at least you got to enjoy it while it was there. Or maybe we just start changing the conversations that we're having. And so instead of trying to change, spend, and pour money into something that will never grow or actually benefit us, we start to have conversations that's like, check out my 1992 countertops, vintage. They're going to come back in style. They're going to be back in style before we know it. And people are going to be like, wow, girl, look at you. The vintage, original, what? I'm convinced that that's going to be my win one day. That, yes. So unless it's like a function type of thing, like it has to, like we have a bathroom that has to be because because it's like has to be redone. But other than that, like we don't care.
It's understanding where your leverage is located.
Yeah.
It's no different than, because again, I got a lot of clients like this, have a large, I'll call it real estate portfolio, got duplexes and multifamilies that are free and clear, and they are happy with the income being generated by the rent. But how much is being left on? How much more could you be doing, not just for your portfolio, just for generating wealth by leveraging those free and clear buildings and using the dollar amount in those assets to be able to generate and build wealth? What is compound interest? Compound interest is your money making money, and the money that your money makes more money. Which money are you spending? Okay, I'm a real estate mogul. I've got these properties, they're free and clear, and I'm receiving this rent. That is my profit, and I'm spending that. What if the leverage in those properties could be making more money? And then that money's making money. And then you go spend that. It's really truly understanding where your leverage is located and how just to simply generate compound interest. That's it.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat, their name is not coming up, says, got you beat 1970s countertops that are mustard yellow. Great point, though. Winning. Mid-century modern is in, that's 50s, right? So I don't know if there's any 50s left, but I'm sure somebody would have loved to walk into vintage.
Right.
Mid-century modern now, right? That could have been worth tons of money. Can you imagine? Wow. Yeah, floors are still flooring here. Windows are still windowing. Countertops are still topping. They're still holding up, doing their jobs. And so while they're still holding it down, we are growing our money and making different decisions. And it took me a long time to get there. So no judgment to others who make different decisions, right? That's your business. That's your freedom to make those choices.
Right.
What I'm sharing, though, is the conflict between what I went in debt to learn and now where I had to, like, my journey from that high horse, right? And those dreams dying.
Bruh.
And then birthing new ones with new possibilities and seeing something completely different. Like, wow, I do value feeling good about my space and my home and those types of things, but does it have to cost so much? And that's where I just started to change so many conversations that I was having and things I believed for real. And it didn't matter how much money I had already put in, right? This whole industry, this whole career took a complete turn for another reason. We won't talk about that tonight, but the surprise, spoiler alert, after I graduated, I was bedridden with a horrible illness. And that's when I learned that you don't get to plan. You don't have complete control over some things. And so this is why you need to understand where your leverage is and be able to still have some sense of control over your options, your future, your finances, and ultimately, like Tabitha and I were talking about in the chat, your peace, because that is a key part. A lot of panic was ensued as a result of that. But he says, for us beginners, can you recommend some videos to watch on your playlist to help educate us prior to getting started on this journey? I just got my line of credit at 11.65% with a credit union, and I am excited. First of all, congratulations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And also, some people are probably thinking 11.65%. Why are you excited about a interest rate like that? We have shown tons of times, so thank you for asking about those videos. We have shown tons of times why sometimes people who golf at higher interest rates and would avoid these strategies, right? How they, if you do the math all the way through, you can see how beneficial they actually are. So what would you recommend? Some videos.
So as far as playlist wise, I can't. I'd have to scroll just like you would. And I think that's where we can do this better. We talked about how we structure the videos on our channel and building playlists. And I think we're headed down that path, but I don't know that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, sweetheart. I think we're headed down that path on identifying the key videos to that fit a certain bucket.
Yeah.
I think the easiest ones though would be our 200 months ahead on your mortgage and the video we did Sunday, even 2 weeks ago, where we talked about how we kind of walked through the first 6 months, I believe, of how we leverage our line of credit and what that math looked like. I would say those two to start, but I think we could do a better job of bucketing our videos into a position to where, hey, I just go to this playlist to learn about this subject. But I want to highlight something
Okay.
because I've been waiting on this question and I'm just shocked I haven't received it. The video we did today was related to a second position home equity line of credit using a 7% interest rate compared to a 3.24% mortgage. And then we turned around and did a first position line of credit at that same 7%. All of that is doable. But depending on your credit score, the likelihood of you getting a non double digit interest rate, it's kind of slim. Again, depends on the factors, your DTI, your credit score, all of those stuff and things. If we were to look at today's example where we got a $130,000 first position home equity line of credit, where I showed based off the cash flow, it took 48 months to pay off. What if that exact same $130,000 line of credit was 11%? How long would it take? Like, what would the math say? Sweetheart, if you slide over to the, I'll call it the half vibe board, I'll show you.
Okay. Here we go.
So let me go back to the 7. So if you remember,
Oh, the calculator or
yes, ma'am.
the other? Okay.
No worries.
Here we go.
Communication is key. I know.
There we
My
are.
bad. So this is 130,000 at 7%. And again, using the same cash flow, the thought process was we replaced the mortgage, which means the cash flow went from $2,000 a month to $2,900. So 5,000 going in, 2,100 in expenses, 130,000 at 7%. Oh, get rid of that. It took approximately, go ahead. This is the original example.
This is on the replace your mortgage calculator.
It is.
Yeah.
Notice 48 months to pay off. But what if this interest rate wasn't 7%? What if it was 11%? So 48 months became what? 54? 48 months became 54. So that's an additional what? 6 months? So the 4% difference in interest rate equated to 4 additional months in payments. 6 additional months in payments. My point is, depending on the cash flow, depending on the strategy, depending on the type of line of credit you have, the interest rate really plays less of a role than you think, which is why my wife gets on me about this all the time, which is why, as it relates to our personal situation, we've had the opportunity to lock in the interest rate on our line of credit. But as long as that money's revolving, as long as we're using it the way we're supposed to, the interest rate becomes inconsequential. It is still better than a 3.24% mortgage rate having an 11, 12, 13. I think you have to get around that 15% mark before you start kind of lining up in the amount of interest that you're paying. It really more depends upon how you're leveraging this vehicle. What is your cash flow? What is your time horizon? What are you using it for? Are you putting this line of credit in a position to where the spread that you're making, meaning maybe I'm investing this dollar amount, and am I investing this dollar amount and gaining an interest rate higher than whatever this interest rate might be? So there's many factors here, but the key piece is understanding the strategy and how you're leveraging your dollars determines how impactful that interest rate on that line of credit will actually be.
While we were talking about like replacing things or not, like where we have to invest or make major purchases, right? We were talking about that, and some people in the chat were bringing up about HVAC and roofing, like the things that the major expenses that come up.
Yes.
I wanted to bring up this same point because for a lot of people, they thought about solar, getting solar panels on their roof. And you would think, well, gosh, she's not going to replace her countertops. She probably definitely said no to that solar, right? And I did. But then Donnell showed me the math. It was actually cheaper for us to purchase an entire roof of solar panels than it was to just pay the regular electric rate, even with the payment for the solar. In addition to whatever whatever's left over from your electric company, it was still cheaper for us to do that with solar than for us to not make that investment. This is where, this is wild to me, but this is where the surface math is robbing us blind on a daily basis. There are things and places where it makes sense and where it doesn't make sense, but my goodness, if you do not do the math all the way through to understand what it is you're actually saying no to, no different, 11% versus 7% versus 3%. What are you saying no to? And what are you using it for, right?
Right.
It's crucial. So I just wanted to bring that up to say, I would have said no. I was very, very guilty of that surface math. How does it make sense? We're adding an extra payment every month. And how will we know, right? The what ifs. How will we know? And I think it just came down to, I just did not see things positively in that way. I was always on guard. That was my strategy for life, was like prepare for the what ifs. Then you're not surprised, right? Now you're prepared. And I didn't want to add more what ifs. But doing that surface math was costing us and our family and our future a lot more than I thought that it was, because I just didn't know what I didn't know. And a lot of other people do too. So I'm glad that you brought that up and you showed the comparison of the 11% versus, that's a good one. Okay, I think we have one more comment here versus question. And I really appreciate you guys all sharing in here in the chat some of your experiences too. Those mean, sorry. Oh, solar panels. Okay. Tabitha says, oh, let's get off here. I think many of us don't reach our WTF moment because we're stuck in our minds with the old philosophies, but trying to do a new process at the same time. You don't put me wine in an old skin.
Look, I've said this for years, and it took some time for us to get there, or for me to get there. And that is, some people think we are a container filled with fluid, right? Glass filled with water. And what you learn as you get older is that container that's filled with water, you have full control to pour the contents out and refill it. But a lot of us have been conditioned to believe we just have to deal with the contents of the container. It's not our fault. It's not our trauma. We didn't create the trauma. We just have to deal with it. No, actually, you can empty the contents of the container and start over. Just because it's filled with the how your parents dealt with money, just because it's filled with the cartoons that you've watched, just because it's filled with the idioms you've learned, just because it's filled with the trauma you've gone through in your relationships related to how money was used in your marriage, does not mean you can't pour those contents out and start over, because that education piece is key. And once you get it, once you learn it, it's your job, it's your responsibility to take action, knowing that back here, you may still have those same subconscious thoughts and feelings around the same things that filled your glass initially. But you have the ability to take control. You have the ability to get self-directed. We're giving away a boat.
I love that. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. We haven't given away a boat in a long time. And really everything we've been talking to leads up to this. I mean, of course it does, right? ability to change our little habits and decisions that we make on a daily basis to help us reach our goal. That is why we give away the boat, because it relates to a story of another team of people, a group of people who had decided enough is enough. If we are going to win, if we are going to achieve this goal, we have to be willing to do what it takes. And are we? Ask ourselves, are we willing to do this? They were, and they did. And that is why we use this same concept. We ask this question as kind of an anchor question, right? Becomes our North Star of where we're going. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And that's why we have to recalibrate and understand the questions that we ask of ourselves are the most important ones. And where is it at? Where's that video? Gosh, messed up my segue. Okay, here we go. This is why we give away the boat.
In 1998, a British rowing team dreaming of the Olympic gold found themselves ranked 7th. Their focus had always been on the competition day, but they realized the keys to reaching their highest potential were hiding in the decisions that they'd make over those next 2 years.
Faced with two obvious choices, continue their current path and expect the same result, or give up, they discovered a third transformative option. They united under one guiding question: will it make the boat go faster? Every decision, every action was weighed against this mantra. If the answer was yes, they could, but would have to do it.
If the answer was no, it was forbidden, non-negotiable. Prior to the competition, this team was doubted and ridiculed, but no one knew what they had been doing. And once they hit the water, they were nearly unrecognizable, achieved their pinnacle, and won the gold. So we ask you,
What is your goal? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
will your story feel unrecognizable, even to you? Are you willing to light your beacon and stay focused, stay committed? Is your story non-negotiable, or are you waiting to find out how you ranked? Your financial future is not a game. You are only competing with yourself and those in the boat with you, your family and the many generations to come.
Will this make the boat go faster? A sounding alarm, a beacon of clarity amidst turbulent life decisions.
It's not just about speed, but direction, purpose, and an unwavering commitment. Every choice, every sacrifice aimed at the goal.
The first agreement this team made was to become fully self-directed, making their health their wealth, adopting a new perspective on their time and freedom, and the decisions they could fully control to reach their goal.
Will we make your boat go faster? That is our pledge to you. Our mission is to arm you with knowledge, strategies, and insights to ensure that not only you reach the goal, but you do so long before your race is over.
Okay, we got people in here. We see them. Kind of make sure it worked first. You know, sometimes we get these tech gremlins. All right, we got everybody in there. Let's spin and see who won. Here we go. If you're new here, you got to put hashtag vote in the chat in order to qualify to win. If you can hear me. Who's it gonna be? What? Roger, this is the coolest thing. You've been so active. It's like you're calling it into your life right now, and I love that. He's got the boat, he's got the support, he's got the community. He was saying, I think I'm on a bike right now and I just need a good push. We are taking the training wheels off, my friend, and we are gonna teach you how to ride that bike. So I loved that analogy that you had put in the chat. Congratulations. Go to selfdirected.info/live to claim your boat. And surprise, you get a little more than just the boat in there. We've got a whole kit to help you keep some of these concepts, some of these questions center of mind, front of mind, so that you don't forget. And
Congratulations, Roger.
yes, congratulations. Well, let's spin again because we missed last week anyway. So here we go. Who else is gonna win? Gotta put the good juju out there. Richard Gray, congratulations. I haven't seen your name in here, So welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We hope that you guys love this kit that we send out. If you have one before, but you never claimed yours or you hadn't got it, please reach out to us. We want to make sure everybody gets them. And if Richard, for you, go to selfdirected.info/live, or you can go /winner. You can get it there too. Well, congratulations. Yeah. All right. So we know that time is the most valuable asset that we have. And on a holiday weekend, on any weekend, we are, as a replay viewer, we are so grateful that you guys spend your time here with us. We hope that the time that we are out here sharing that is valuable for you. And if it is, and you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Please join us here in this community. Jump in the chat, be a part of it. This is a place where we know where the wins are. We understand what winning looks like, and when other people around you probably can't. This is a place where you can say, like, you guys get it. You understand why this is a big deal right now. And we do. So get in here, join this community, join this movement to take control, to become self-directed. That is what we hope for everybody. It's that financial piece in finding and establishing financial security. Hope that for everybody. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, we thank you all for participating in the chat, for tuning in, for spending time with us. Here we go. We like to end with, if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
so stay tuned,
Stay protected.
stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique,
And I'm Donnell.
and our goal is to help you.
Get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources, so don't sleep on those. We are here every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Well, until the time changes.
That is true.
We're in Arizona, so the time doesn't change, so we have to change this message. So if you've heard something different on there, that's why. We're here every Sunday, usually, except for last week. But normally, we're here every
You guys
Sunday.
didn't want me here last Sunday. It was not good.
Yeah, we were not in our best last Sunday. So we're here when we're at our best, but we're also putting out new videos each week instead of streaming twice a week. So we have more of those coming out. So we look forward to that. Subscribe so you'll be notified, and hit the bell somewhere underneath here, that bell to be notified. And we will see you back here next Sunday. We hope we see you back here next Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Is that it? All
That's
right.
it. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
guys. Have a good night.
Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you
Get self-directed.